Welcome and thank you for joining us on Ebru Africa News. It is the 23rd of February 2014. My name is Beryl. Ooro. Let's start the day with the headlines. Free at last. Ukraine opposition leader Tymoshenko speaks in first meeting after release. Ambitious Bouteflika. Ailing 79-year-old Algerian president is set to run for a fourth term. Newman at the top. Matteo Renzi is the new Italian Prime Minister. Ukrainian parliament convened and voted out President Viktor Yanukovych, bringing a semblance of calm in a country that has hope in the upcoming elections after days of deadly fighting.
The votes are in, and Ukraine's parliament says President Viktor Yanukovych is out. Celebration ensues as the Ukrainian parliament impeaches their president and sets early elections for May 25th. The impeachment comes after he called his impeachment a coup and defied calls for his resignation.
I am not going to leave Ukraine or go anywhere. I am not going to resign. I am legitimately elected president. I was given guarantees by all international mediators which I worked with that they are giving me security guarantees. I will see how they will fulfill that role.
Я посмотрю, как они будут выполнять эту роль.
Yanukovych and the opposition had signed a deal Friday to end the bloodshed and hold elections. After Saturday's impeachment, Yanukovych compared events in his country to the rise of the Nazis in Germany.
Мы видим повтор.
We are witnessing a return of the Nazis, the time when in the 1930s the Nazis came to power in Germany and Austria. It is the same now.
In another move, Parliament voted to free Yanukovych's arch-nemesis, opposition leader Yulia Tymoshenko. Tymoshenko had been jailed under abuse of office charges since 2011. Her freedom sets her up for a possible run for the presidency in May.
Following days of fighting and 77 reported deaths in Ukraine, the journey to rebuilding the country begins. And it all starts with anticipated elections that are set to define the new beginning for Ukraine.
Yulia Tymoshenko is back. The Ukrainian opposition leader and former prime minister was freed on Saturday after 2 years in confinement. Upon her arrival in Kiev, she praised protesters for their historic achievement in toppling President Viktor Yanukovych.
Nobody could have imagined that a handful of people who gathered at the most critical point on the square will be able to change history, and not just for Ukraine.
After clashes between riot police and anti-government protesters took 77 lives this week, a deal for reforms and early elections was reached Friday. But on Saturday, Parliament voted to free Tymoshenko and impeach Yanukovych, an act he called a coup. The unrest started when Yanukovych backed out of a European Union deal, something Tymoshenko believes would return.
And I'm confident that Ukraine will be in the nearest future a member of the European Union. I believe in that, because that will change everything.
Earlier in the day, protesters outside Parliament celebrated Yanukovych's impeachment.
I think it was the right decision by Parliament because Yanukovych was no more fit to decide Ukraine's fate. And for him, it's sort of a minimal loss. He would have lost more if he was hanged as the people at the square wanted.
While protesters mourn for the dead, the country still has a long way to go before early elections set for May 25th.
Following 2 weeks of negotiations, the United Nations Security Council united for the first time on a resolution on Syria's humanitarian crisis on Saturday, demanding that President Bashar Assad's government and the opposition provide immediate access everywhere in the country to deliver aid to millions of people in desperate need.
It was a rare moment of unity for the Security Council, where until now, Russia and China had vetoed 3 resolutions that would have condemned Syria's government and threatened it with possible sanctions. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon.
Ladies and gentlemen, this resolution should not have been necessary. Humanitarian assistance is not something to be negotiated. It is something to be allowed by virtue of international law.
But Syrian ambassador to the United Nations Bashar Jafari blamed the humanitarian crisis in Syria on terrorist groups, a term Syria has used when referring to rebels.
Supporting Syrians in the humanitarian field, ladies and gentlemen, cannot be carried out effectively and truly unless it is also accompanied in word and deed with non-politicization of humanitarian topics and putting an end to terrorism. The activities of the armed terrorist groups, including those associated with Al-Qaeda, are the main reason for the humanitarian suffering of the Syrian people.
The resolution demands cross-border aid access and condemns rights abuses by the Syrian government as well as armed opposition groups. The UN says over 9 million people in Syria are in need of humanitarian assistance. That's nearly half the population.
Somalia's Al-Qaeda-linked Shabab rebels launched a major suicide attack against the heavily guarded presidential palace home to the country's internationally backed government, killing officials and guards in a fierce gun battle.
A huge car bomb exploded at the perimeter of the central Mogadishu complex, and a group of at least 9 suicide attackers breached the Villa Somalia compound, one of the best defended locations in the war-torn country. Security forces fought a fierce gun battle with the attackers, all young men who appeared to be disguised in police uniforms. Another police official said 9 attackers were later found dead and that 5 Somali officials had also died.
As you can see, there were 9 attackers. 7 of them are there dead and 2 of them blew themselves up inside their cars, and their remains are scattered around here. The security forces managed to foil that cowardly and desperate attack.
A government source said Somalia's former Deputy Intelligence Chief Mohamed Noor and Mohamed Abdul, a close aide to the Prime Minister, were among the victims. The National Union of Somali Journalists said a local radio journalist was also in a critical condition.
So far, we know that 3 people were killed by stray bullets. 1 of them was a government soldier and 2 were government officials inside the presidency. 1 was a general from Somalia's security forces named Nur Shirbo. The other one was the director of Somalia's Prime Ministerial Office.
The attack came just a week after the militants carried out a suicide car bomb attack at the gates of Mogadishu's heavily fortified international airport, and the Shabab spokesperson said the hardline group wanted to show that no place is safe for the apostate government. Shabab rebels immediately claimed responsibility.
At least 1 person has been killed in an explosion at an anti-government rally in Thailand's southern Trad province and 41 more wounded.
Gunmen shot at an anti-government protest stage and threw explosive devices in the Khao Sameng district. A witness said people were leaving because the rally almost finished.
They were about to go back. I almost went back.
Supporters of Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra promised to get tough with anti-government protesters, paralyzing parts of Bangkok, raising tension in a protracted political crisis hours after the protest rally attack. Anti-government protesters have blocked main Bangkok intersections for weeks with tents, tires and sandbags, seeking to unseat Yingluck and halt the influence of her billionaire brother Thaksin Shinawatra, an ousted former premier regarded by many as the real power behind the government. Presenting a further headache for Yingluck, the island's anti-corruption body filed charges against her last week over a rice subsidy scheme that has left hundreds of farmers and natural backers unpaid. Yingluck is due to hear the charges on Thursday.
A 10-day battle that has brought the South American country of Venezuela to a chaotic juncture continues, with the government pulling all stops to enforce order within its boundaries, even as the country's opposition leader is still imprisoned.
The streets of Caracas fill with both supporters and opponents of the Venezuelan government. At least 8 people have been killed in 10 days of unrest. As demonstrators show support for President Nicolas Maduro, he is facing the worst turmoil since narrowly winning election last April. He tells the crowd 2 supporters have been arrested for firing weapons.
They have been arrested. They are in the hands of the authorities, and that's how it should be. Nobody is allowed to shoot at anyone else.
The opposition is not going quietly. Opposition leader Enrique Capriles rallies the crowd. He pledges to do what he can to help free jailed opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez. Lopez's wife delivers a message from her husband.
Leopoldo sends you a very firm message, a message that I transmit to you every day. He is with you. He is with each and every one of you, and he is grateful for all of you who wore white in Venezuela and throughout the world.
As dusk falls, clashes erupt on the street. Maduro says protests are a pretext for a planned coup. However, there are no indications that the military, which was a decisive factor in an attempted coup 12 years ago, would turn on Maduro now.
Turkish riot police fired tear gas to disperse thousands of demonstrators in central Istanbul protesting against what they see as authoritarian new laws from Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan's government.
Police used water cannons and tear gas to disperse protesters in Istanbul's central Taksim Square. This is the second such protest in recent weeks. The demonstration was against law-tightening government control over the internet, along with an increasing government influence over the judiciary. The government said the law will protect privacy and defend democracy in the country. Erdogan's critics see the new law as an authoritarian backlash against the corruption inquiry shaking his government. Social media and video sharing sites have been awash with leaked recordings of government wrongdoing since the corruption scandal erupted. The graft scandal poses one of the greatest threats to Erdogan's 11-year rule.
Matteo Renzi, 39, becomes the EU's youngest prime minister as Italy's new government is sworn in.
A stroll through Rome for Matteo Renzi ahead of his swearing in as Italy's youngest prime minister. The 39-year-old leader of the Democratic Party will face a tough political test as he tries to manage the same cross-party alliance that hampered his predecessor. At the presidential palace, he's sworn in. He faces a huge challenge as the Eurozone's third-largest economy struggles to emerge from its worst slump since World War II. The country is weighed down by an enormous public debt and an industrial base that has crumbled over the past decade. As his predecessor, Enrico Letta, hands over the bell to mark the first cabinet meeting, he walks off. Renzi's government faces parliamentary confidence votes starting Monday to confirm it has the required majority. On the streets, people are looking for change.
The economic situation must be changed, and the relationship with Europe as well, meaning all European countries must have the same possibilities.
The new list of ministers is good. They are all young, but let's wait and see.
Business and union leaders have repeatedly warned that the government must take urgent action to save Italy, as tens of thousands of companies are going out of business and millions are out of work.
Populist South African leader Julius Malema presented his manifesto for upcoming elections to a stadium packed with supporters calling for real freedom for the black majority.
The leader of the Economic Freedom Front, Julius Malema, launched his manifesto by promising to rescue South Africans from deep levels of inequality. The 31-year-old addressed a crowd of 30,000 supporters in Tembisa, Johannesburg, where he reprised his demands for the seizure of farms from white owners.
We shall expropriate our land without compensation. The land shall be transferred into the ownership of the people. The state will be the custodian of the land. No foreigner will own the land in South Africa.
Malema also promised to create more positions at universities, lower taxes, raise pensions, and give priority to the hiring of blacks. He also reiterated his support for gold miners who have been on strike over wages for the past month, denouncing what he called the slave wages of ordinary blacks.
We are going to take 60% of the mines, and with the money we are making from the mines, we shall finance this manifesto. We are going to ensure that we use land to generate more income for the state, and that income shall finance this manifesto.
Malema called on his supporters not to fight with anyone amid fears of clashes with the NSC Youth League, which was holding a meeting nearby. The EFF was created in 2012 after Malema and his allies were kicked out of the NSC for criticizing the party leadership.
Ailing 76-year-old Algerian President Abdelaziz Bouteflika will stand for re-election for a fourth term in April, this according to his Prime Minister Abdelmalek Sellal.
The Prime Minister was speaking in Oran, west of Algiers, on the sidelines of an economic seminar. Bouteflika, who has been in power for 15 years, suffered a mini-stroke last year that confined him to a Paris hospital for 3 months. One of the few remaining veterans of the War of Independence against France, Bouteflika came to power in 1999. The recent years of his rule have been dogged by ill health and more recently by corruption scandals implicating members of his inner circle. He also tried to check the power of Algeria's unelected military and intelligence leaders who have played a key role in the North African country's politics since its independence from France in 1962. Despite his efforts to roll back their prerogatives, the army and its secretive DRS intelligence agency retain much of the political power they have wielded. There has been a mounting war of words over the role of the military in public life, in which senior officers are portrayed as opposing a fourth term for Bouteflika.
As the days to the World Cup draw closer, anti-World Cup demonstrations rippled through Brazil, this time in Sao Paulo, where protesters demanded more money to be spent on social welfare rather than hosting the continental showpiece scheduled for June this year.
More than 1,000 demonstrators took to the streets to protest against the costs associated with Brazil's hosting of the World Cup. The crowd was largely peaceful as they marched through downtown streets, carrying large protest signs denouncing corruption and the cost of hosting the soccer tournament. As darkness fell, police used tear gas bombs and stun grenades to disperse the crowds. Police detained scores of demonstrators, most of whom were held and searched only to be later released. Though several were arrested and taken away in police custody. The demonstrators accused police of using excessive force against what they said was a peaceful protest.
They took the black bloc to one side, started beating them. They made a wall with 3 rows of police. We just stopped and made a line and shouted, "No violence." They started shooting bombs and ended it all.
They accused the police for singling out members of a protest group known as the Black Bloc. The Black Bloc in Sao Paulo are generally males between the ages of 15 and 23 from Brazil's new lower middle class, and they usually cover their faces during demonstrations. The protest comes less than 4 months before the FIFA World Cup will kick off in Sao Paulo in June the 12th.
As the morning dawned, the bell tolled for top Mexican drug lord Joaquin Guzman, also known as Shorty, bringing to an end a firm collaborative investigation that led to his arrest in a hotel in his home state of Sinaloa.
Mexico's most wanted drug kingpin is under arrest. On Saturday, authorities captured Joaquin Shorty Guzman after a months-long operation with help from certain U.S. agencies. The U.S. had placed a $5 million bounty on his head, and authorities in Chicago last year dubbed him the city's first public enemy #1 since gangster Al Capone. Attorney General Jesus Maria Karam.
Today at 6:40 in the morning, the Navy detained Joaquin Guzman in the city of Mazatlan along with a collaborator.
Karam says the operation was complicated by the discovery that 7 homes used by Guzman were connected by tunnels.
Not only connected by several tunnels, but he always used the city's drainage system. The doors to the homes where he was found were reinforced with lead, and that caused several minutes of delay in opening them, allowing for an escape through the tunnels.
Guzman was captured at a seaside resort in his northwestern home state of Sinaloa. He has been caught before and famously gave his jailers the slip. In 2001, he escaped a Mexican prison, reportedly in a laundry cart, to become the country's most high-profile trafficker.
The scramble for the best quality of education has rallied academic institutions to customize the valued commodity of education, and now leading institutions have identified Malaysia as the ideal spot to establish the new frontier of education.
The lawns are trimmed, the rugby and football pitches beautifully kept, the new running track proving popular with the students, and the pool spotlessly clean. Everything you'd expect from one of Britain's leading private boarding schools. But what makes this one stand out is its location. It's not in England, but southern Malaysia.
The facilities that have been there in the UK have been developed over 170 years. We're not even 170 weeks old here. This will get better and better as time goes on. But critically, the type of education that we're delivering is pretty much the same as we do back in the United Kingdom.
Marlborough College is just one facility of many in a new education area known as Edu City in the outskirts of the city of Johor. Several of the best university departments from the UK and other countries have come together to create Asia's first multiversity. It was opened in 2011.
A Malaysian student would be able to get the Newcastle UK medical degree. It's the same degree exactly, it's the same program exactly. For about 60% of the cost compared to studying in the UK.
Next to Newcastle's medical school is Southampton's engineering faculty, consistently ranked one of the best courses in Europe. Students will spend 2 years here before transferring to England for their final 2 years. And the university isn't just targeting Malaysian students.
Our ambition is to market this opportunity regionally, so a big target for us is obviously going to be, the Indonesian type market, potentially Vietnam, potentially Thailand, and of course China and India.
Both Southampton and Newcastle are renowned in the UK for their student nightlife, but many parts of Edu City are still under construction. The nearest big town is around 20 minutes drive away, but the students don't seem to mind.
Slightly different here. I don't think many of us do go out every night, but we do have fun during the weekends.
The final plan will see 8 departments from 8 separate universities located here on the one campus, giving students the chance to get a world-class degree, both closer to home and for a lot less money.
As the world's voices continue to grow around the discussion on climate change, the reality of the impact of deforestation on the biodiversity in Romania has led to a renewed effort through a new instituted code of penalties for offenders.
The valley of Pujana in the heart of the Romanian Carpathian Mountains, where once densely forested hillsides have been stripped bare by illegal logging. A scourge that's becoming widespread in a region hosting Europe's largest old-growth forests outside of Russia. More than 900 hectares of 100-year-old woodland disappeared here between 2010 and 2012.
Normally this forest would have produced 10,000 cubic meters of wood over 10 years, but this amount, and even more, was logged in barely 2.5 years, 3 years.
Over the past 20 years, some 80 million cubic meters of wood has been illegally felled in Romania, a haul worth an estimated 5 billion euros. And thieves are creative. Here at Comana, close to Bucharest, they've disguised the stumps of trees with earth and dead leaves. The Forestry Ministry is finally sounding the alarm. The pace of illegal logging is now twice that of reforestation and natural regeneration combined.
Nu vom avea pădurea necesară pentru a proteja localitățile.
If this goes on, there will be no more forests to protect us from extreme weather conditions, from landslides and from drought.
De secete, pentru că pădurea are un rol extrem de important.
We will have no more forests to stroll in.
Și până la urmă nu vom avea păduri în care noi, cetățenii, să ne petrecem timpul liber.
As well as repercussions for the climate, deforestation also threatens thousands of wild animals in the region, like bears, wolves and lynx.
Tăierile ilegale au un efect distrugător asupra populațiilor.
Illegal logging has a devastating impact on wild animals, especially when it is conducted in areas connecting various habitats where these animals find refuge and food.
Unde aceste animale își găsesc hrană și adăpost.
Environmental groups blame the deforestation on the growing global demand for wood, as well as the complicity of local authorities, a lack of guards and legal loopholes. They also cite a flourishing grey market where provenance is not questioned. A new, stricter forestry code has been drawn up, but it still awaits a vote in Parliament.
And with that, we come to the end of the bulletin on Ebru Africa News. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. I'm Beryl Ooro.
Newline Limited, your one-stop shop for elegant and comfortable office furniture. Newline responds to your expectations for office furniture in a modern language. We offer a 5-year warranty period including unit transfers within Nairobi. For more information, visit our showroom at Chester House, Lotus Street, Nairobi. Newline Limited, your success partner.
Floma, professional makeup.
Does your exterior complement your interior? Everyone needs a home that is inspired by nature. At Yenbo Limited, we offer durable, energy-efficient and affordable UPVC windows in attractive colors. Visit us at Wall Street Business Park off Mombasa Road. Yenbo UPVC windows, your desire, our challenge.
Newline Limited, we offer current, stylish, state-of-the-art kitchen and wardrobe appliances tailored to suit your preference. We offer unit transfers within Nairobi. Let your kitchen stand out today by visiting us at Chester House, Lotus Street. Your comfort and satisfaction comes first.
Floma, professional makeup.